Hello. This is my first video on YouTube, so I'm gonna give an introduction. Hi, I'm Matthew. I'm 15 years old. I live in the U.S. My USCF chess rating is 1960, and right now I was inspired to make this inspired to make this account by King's Crusher, Jerry, Jay Roby, and other people on the internet who have helped make helpful videos to teach us how to play chess. Alright, anyways, so I also wanted to make this just to have some fun and to educate. Alright, so right now I'm starting a series on the Sicilian. I'm gonna call it Attacking the Sicilian. Alright, anyways, so right now we're gonna examine the dragon variation of the Sicilian, which is one of the sharpest variations, but I believe it's one of the best ones for white to play against because usually there's very little risk for him and huge risk for the black player as his king often gets hacked. Anyways, so one of the statements from Bobby Fischer was the way to beat the Sicilian is open the H file, sack, and mate. So here we go. Right now we're examining a game played in 2009 by Narayanan Gopal, an Indian, and Zura Jekhazi, someone else, I don't even know. It's tough to pronounce these names, excuse me. I hope I don't offend anyone, but I don't know. So here we go. So that's one move, bishop c4. This is the normal move order by black. So bishop c4 looks to develop the bishop before casting queenside, rather than leaving it on c1, where often on b3 it can help defend white's king, and it also pressurizes the f7 diagonal. And usually black will trade off this bishop for a knight eventually by putting the rook on c8 and then playing the knight to c4, attacking the queen that will be on d2 and the bishop on e3, which you'll see later. So, a different move for white, however, was queen d2 in this position, but we will examine that later, possibly in this video. So, bishop c4. Alright, he castled, so that's just a normal move. So, here we go. Bishop d7. So his king's on the king side, and it's mutual attacking. Opposite side castling, very sharp. Okay, so now there's two moves here. I'll show you this just so you can see. Alright, there's g4 and there's king b1. g4 is not very good. I recommend king b1, which is advanced prophylaxis. That's what people call it. So g4. So this is how black can get a decent position. He plays b5 and b4. And he attacks your knight. So obviously you can't take his knight on f6 here because he can take on c3, attacking the queen. So I'll show that very quickly. And then after takes here, he's going to attack your queen with check, so you can't take the bishop or anything. And so he's going to have a great position there. So you don't want to do that. So instead, you're going to do knight c2, knight c, e2, knight h5, f4, knight c4. If you would play something like knight g4, I bet you would go bishop g1 and then attack the knight with h3. If that's not what he played there. Well, this is just one variation. It's not what was played in the game. And then you attack the rook, and now you have two options, but both are not very good for white. f5, he attacks the pawn on e4 here, this queen, and that's not very good. After I'll show you that. Sorry, excuse me. f5 take, and then you go queen d3, defending that, and then it just goes there. And the rooks are very good on the file here, so black's doing fine here. His bishops are active, and all of his pieces are. He's not getting hacked. Alright, so the other move is knight g3, but after rook c3, I believe Carlsen was the black player of this game. He got a good position. So, yeah, you can see that there's potential exchange sack on e3, and that black's just got a good position because you know he can get his pieces out in the c file and try to attack white, or at least prevent his initiative. So you don't want to play g4. So instead, you want to play the other option, king b1. So now black has three options: a6, rook e8, and knight c4. Knight c4 is not very good. g4 attack. Two moves here, b5, and queen c7. Let's start with b5. That's a very important move. We'll come back to that later. There's three options here. We'll come back to this later. So queen c7, you attack there, attack his queen. So win a tempo there, get the knight there, and bring the knight back here. And black's gonna have initiative to deal with from white, because white can play knight g3 and start attacking black on the h file. So that's not very good. So instead, he can play b5, b3, and now there's three options here. The first one, rook c5, is not very good because after knight there, we're winning exchange, because either way he takes, we take on c5, and then there's a pin, whether it would be on the queen or on the bishop. And then, like, say, if he takes, then it would be there, and if he takes with the bishop, takes, then he's going to lose his queen. So whether he loses his queen or his bishop, excuse me. Alright, so that's not very good. He loses the exchange. So instead, what about rook c8, you ask? Alright, well, take there. Now we're going to this endgame where white has an advantage here. You take there first, stacking the king, check. Takes back the queen. Now the rook's hanging on c8. Now there's two moves here. A takes b5, and rook c8. A takes b5 is not very good because after knight takes, rook takes, we're already threatening g5 to win a piece. So instead, I'd say that rook c8 is better, but after takes, bishop c5 is on the diagonal here, so that's pretty good. And also after this, that, and either knight b7 or rook hd1. We'll just go with knight b7. White gets an advantage. For example, after rook b8, that's a mistake because of rook d8 check. Because then after the queens are traded, he has to deal with this. So even though here apparently black has the option of knight g4. Let me show you this, just to show you that it's good. Alright, if I could move this here. I can't move it, but yeah, we can. Here we go. So yeah, this is pretty good. So anyways, I'm going to stop that so my computer doesn't crash or turn it off. Alright, so that's that. And after say the more sensible rook e8, bishop b2 is pretty good. Attacking the rook. So that's that. So let's see. Okay, that was, so instead of rook c5 or rook c8, what about b4? Well, this is not enough compensation. White gets a slightly better position after both rooks. H5 is met by g5, and then queen d3 and c3, and rook c8 is met by h5, and then, okay, yeah, I've looked over this. I don't know what the move is here, but I'm pretty sure that's not the right move. That was in my notes though. So I think, however, that this is better, because after the bishop moves back, I'll show you this. I'll add this as a new variation. New variation. Now I'll overwrite. So after this, I'll put on Houdini here real quickly, but I'm gonna put on one CPU so it doesn't crash my computer. One CPU. Close some of these backgrounds. Alright, so yeah, after bishop f8, g5, e5 is an interesting try, because otherwise you're gonna lose the pawn. So there, g takes f6, takes. Okay, queen b8 checks the move, but let's say you know this. Then you just take here, and after takes, you're taking here. So white obviously has an advantage. So that's that. So instead of, so those aren't very good options for black. So basically, what should he not? So, excuse me. That's why knight c4 is not very good. Alright, so I'm gonna turn off this computer now here. So instead, what if rook e8? Well, rook e8 used to be the main move, but after h4, h5, g4 is a nice attacking option, even though bishop h6 was the old move. But g4 takes there. So the main move in many of these variations in the dragon is you want to sacrifice, open the h file, and then mate. So after knight takes, at the opportune moment, you're going to go rook takes and use your minor pieces and major pieces to attack down the open lines on the king and go for checkmate. So here, rook c3 is not very good because of queen c3 takes, and then rook there. So if knight h5, bishop h6, e6, rook dg1, white gets a nice attacking position. After g3, that loses immediately because of either this is a nice option, but this is a more forcing option. Rook takes h5, and after takes, knight is forced to go back to defend the bishop from attack. The knight f5 attacking the bishop. Now he has three options here. Bishop h6 is not good after queen takes, queen f6. White gets a nice initiative because after takes h4, rook g1, white has a good position. If he takes on f3 immediately, then he loses because of knight f5. So you can see that if he takes, then he's getting mated on the g file somehow. Probably rook takes, that's mate. So that's bad. And otherwise he gets mated on g7. So he can't do that. So instead, what if he did? Excuse me. So what if he did his other option? What if he did this? Well then, you would sack the exchange. Well, not really sacking the exchange, excuse me, because it's the pin. And then that's pretty bad because he's losing his bishop on g7 and his king's falling apart. So that's not good. And what if bishop f6? His best choice. Well, after it takes, he has two moves. Bishop e5 is not very good because after rook g5 takes, queen c7, he has to meet the threat of queen e5 or queen d4. So he has to play queen c7 or something like that. And then after queen there, there's gonna be mate on the diagonal, so he has to sack material. It's not very good, so that's not an option. So instead of that, rook c6, you take the rook, takes queen h2, and you have a nice initiative, and I believe Black was not able to hold this game. Alright, so that's that. So that g3 doesn't work here. So what about queen f6, his other option? Oh, excuse me, that's already there. So queen f6. Well, white has two moves here. Bishop g7 is not that good because after king takes, queen f4 trades the queens, or it's pretty good for black because he might have knight g3. So that helps avoid some of his problems. So that's not good. So you're forced to play f takes g. And then after takes, queen g7, queen d2. See, you can see the helpfulness of the king b1 move in this position, because if he did not have king b1 and he could do queen f4 trading queens, because the king would be here, so it would be check. So queen d2, h5, and then bring the knight back, and it's exceptionally difficult for black to defend against white's threats of knight g3 and then attacking on the h file. For example, after knight c4 takes b3, rook c5, knight g3. He has two options here. Knight f4 loses to take to e5, and then after d takes, we do knight e4, and we're going to the f6 square, or queen takes, and then rook e1, and then white has a nice position on the e file here, and he can't really prevent himself from losing material here because of something like, queen g5, knight e4, and you're winning. So that's that. So knight g3, and then after you trade here, you're just going for the h file, and you're hunting the king. Rook h4 is a nice move. He has two moves here. f5 loses immediately to queen h2, as I'll show you. There's just going to be inevitable check, and then rook h7. And what about e takes? Well, then there's queen h2 as well. And this was played, and after this, Judith Polgar, I believe, was playing white, and she showed the superiority of this position after that. That's a nice move, and then this move is very nice. Rook h7, attacking f7, so it has to defend like that, and then she plays the crushing queen d6, after which her opponent resigned because after queen c3, queen f6 wins. So obviously you can see the problems of the h file in this variation. So white always gets a nice attack, and that's why I would never play the black side of this. But that's me. Alright, and that's that. And that's that. Okay, so I went over all the options there. So another move is bishop c6, but this failed too, because after this, it simply has a win there, which black didn't notice, and then he just went there. And then he resigned, because after king f8, as the computer shows you, rook h8. It's pretty good. And I'm going to put on the Kibitzer just to see a clear ending. So it's a main 3. After king f8, I'll just finish this out here. Oh yeah, I see it now. Oh shoot, my computer might crash here. Okay, there we go. So after queen takes, then you just take, and then it's mate on f6. Or if he goes knight back, then it's rook f1. And that's going to be mate after queen moves in front or something. Alright, so that's not very good, so I'm going to turn off the computer now. Oh, by the way, that was Houdini, and I recommend that a lot. It's pretty good. So that's that. So to make a long story short, I'm going to go to the game now. There's a lot more here. It's very complicated, and you gotta spend time studying it. Alright, so I'm just picking good example games. So the move play in the game was a6, h4. Go for the attack. Alright, there's two moves here. This is not so good. Well, actually, this is pretty good. Oh no, this is not so good as it was in the other variation because of the rook being on f8. So black got a better position here. So instead, of that, in the game, rook hg1 was played here. There's 3 moves here. I'm not gonna go through all of them because it would take a while. So I'm just gonna pick at knight c4. We sacked the knight there, and white got a nice initiative. Black lost, I'm pretty sure. So that's not very good. So queen a5, bishop is there, bishop f6, takes, bishop f4, bishop f8, lost. Karyakin played that, but after Radulov played a nice sack there, he got a nice position in the same game, and he managed to turn the tables and win as black. So that wasn't very good. So instead, you want to keep your bishops and play bishop f4. Now, the best option for black here is to play knight takes f4. And after something like this, say knight c4, the position is somewhat equal, even though white has an advantage, a little bit. Or you can also play instead of knight c4, knight d3, take there, and white's advantage may be big in this position because of the c file, even though technically the material is even, but white has the initiative here. So instead of knight f4, a weaker try was played. There's 2 other tries here. I'll just show you them. Knight c4 and then you want to follow up with queen h2, and that's going to be a win for white. So is knight f3. So the only move, the move that lost in the game was king h7. After queen g2 that's a good move, and then at e6, white has two moves here. The more aesthetically pleasing finish might be bishop takes e5, and then I followed up, if queen e5, then you follow up with queen g4, and if bishop e5, then you follow up with knight e6, and bishop takes there. And if he takes back, it's queen g6, and it's mate. So that's bad, and so that might be one of the better finishes, but instead, in the game perfectly fine is knight d5, which is more crushing, sort of. You take there, after takes, you sack the queen. Obviously, it's a pseudo sack, you really can't take that because of mate. So he goes there, and the game was concluded nicely. So I hope you enjoyed that game, and I hope you might like it or comment it. I will come out with another video soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.